always good to come back to Phelps County. Moved my family back in September, and I have been commuting the last 2.5 years to North Platte, so a lot of driving time. If you remember, fuel was about $4 a gallon. As soon as I moved, it dropped to under $2 a gallon. So that's just kind of how my luck goes. Anytime I go buy a lottery ticket, they give me my receipt instead of numbers. It just says, "Thanks for your donation." So we have 4 new irrigation-related apps for your iPhones, Androids, your iPads to help you become more efficient in irrigation management, and also help with figuring out how much it costs actually to irrigate crops. So I'd like to recognize a coworker of mine, Troy Ingram, who put most of this presentation together, and I kind of helped him out on it. I do have a handout. I'll have it over here on the table after I'm done here, but it has all 4 apps on it. It's got like a shortened web address, so you can go directly to the Apple Store to download that app. There's actually a barcode there that you can scan and pull that app up as well. We had a student intern last summer that did some YouTube videos. So this is the YouTube video link for each of these 4 different apps that we have available. And she basically just kind of walked through the apps, how do you enter data, how do you get it up and going, how do you save it, and how to utilize that. So it's kind of a nice feature to help you get started, how to understand how to use these apps. So the 4 of them are, we have a crop water app that looks at soil moisture, the profile, how much is there and how much you've used. We've got one on ag irrigation costs, ownership, and operating costs. We got irrigation pumping plant efficiency calculator. This is one that you need. You should be running it on every pumping plant you have every year, and then tracking that to see if your pumping plant efficiency starts going down. We need to do some checking and see why. Maybe fix some problems before they become too bad. And then we have a water meter calculator. That's one that I helped put together. Basically, you have a flow meter on your pivot or gravity, and you can put in beginning and ending meter readings, and it will tell you how much water you pump as you go through the season. So the crop water app, this has actually been out for a couple of years now. We just recently updated it last summer. It's a free app, so there's no charge. It's available both for Apple and Android. We are currently moving this to a different developer, so the app is out there, it's available. There might be a few glitches in it, but we'll have a new and improved one here before the growing season. It was developed at the request of the Nebraska Ag Water Management Network. You may be aware of that. That project is basically using ET gauges, which we've got, I remember, John 10 or 11 in the Tri-Basin area that's read on a weekly basis for crop water use, and then also the watermark soil moisture sensors for estimating soil water. So it provides you basically where your soil water status is at, and how much water was used is how much is available yet. And then it stores those readings over time. A couple of these apps, you're able to save the data on your phone, and it's not going to the cloud or anything like that. So, you know, we can't look at what's on your phone, so the data you have is on your phone and nowhere else. For crop water, basically you enter in field information, you put the field name up there. Again, you can save this for multiple fields, 10, 12, 15 fields, however many you have. You select your soil type, sandy loams, silt loams are all in there. It'll tell you how many inches of water is available per foot. And then you get to select how many sensors you want to look at. In western Nebraska, they usually look at the top 2 feet because they never get water in the 3rd foot. For us, I would like to see us use 3 sensors during the growing season, and then that 4th sensor at the end of the season to schedule that last irrigation, taking into account that water that's stored there, use that, because typically we refill the soil profile every year. So you can select a number of sensors, and then your allowable depletion. Kind of the UNL recommendation is 50% depletion, so we use half of the available water before any crop stress would start occurring. If you've got an older system, or maybe you're on load management or something like that, where you can't just run your pivot continuously and get called back up, you could pick 30 or 40% depletion, and it'll help calculate how much water is left based on that. There's a schedule in the last irrigation section. We'll get to that here in a little bit. So basically, you fill in your data for your sensors down here. Looks like we've got 23, 14, and 16, and 11 for the sensor readings for the 4 depths. There's also a GPS locator up here that you can click on that, and it'll put your GPS coordinates for that field wherever you're standing when you do that. So if you got so many fields you can't remember where to get to them, this will help you get there. So click the calculate button, and it'll come up and say the average sensor reading is 16. We've used about 40 hundredths out of the top foot, a quarter inch. Out of the second and third foot, we've used a little bit out of the fourth foot. So in total, we've used 1.1 inches, and we have about 1.7 inches left before we hit that 50% depletion. The way I like to use those numbers is you for sure want to have at least an inch used before you would apply an inch with your pivot. Okay, if you got good silt loam soils, you might want to use an inch and a half before you put an inch of water on, just in case you get a half inch of rain or something, you got some place to store that. And then the bottom number, how much is available yet? So an inch 70, if you're using, the crop's using about 30 hundredths a day, that'd be a little over 5 days worth of water before you'd have to refill that profile. So it also allows you, do you want to store this data to history? You can actually save that. Just click this little plus button up here in the upper right hand corner, and it'll bring up all your readings for that particular field for each quarter. And then down at the bottom of the screen is a graphs button, which allows you to look at your sensor readings for the past 3 or 4, or maybe for the whole growing season. And I really like the graph feature because I like to look at that third foot as I go through the growing season, third and the fourth foot. You ought to be using water out of the third foot once we get into late July, early August. The roots are down there, you need to be pulling water out of the third foot. As we get into the middle of August, the roots are in the fourth foot, they're probably down 5 or 6 feet. You need to be using water out of that fourth foot as well, start to dry that profile down. Another feature, you can save this image to your pictures on your phone or email it to somebody else. So if you're a consultant, you can email this graph to one of your producers, or if there's multiple people in your operation, send it to somebody else so they know what's going on with that particular field as well. You can go in and schedule the last irrigation. This is one of the features we added this last year. So again, you got basically all your information in there. Select that 4 feet. 50. You could go 60% depletion on that last irrigation. We try to dry the profile down a little bit more at the end of the season because the crop is using quite a bit less water per day. Schedule the last irrigation. You go in and select which crop you're dealing with, whether it be corn, soybeans, sorghum, or dry beans. And then the growth stage of the crop. Here we're selecting the R5. We're a half milk line. And when you're done with that, it's telling us we have about 13 days to maturity. So on average, 13 days, we'll finish this corn up. It'll get done on the 28th of September. And it's going to take 2 1/4 inches of water to get there. Okay? Then down at the bottom of the screen, if you scroll up a little bit, it will show you how much is in the profile. Any difference between that 2 1/4 and what you've got stored has to come from rainfall or irrigation. If you got to put on 2 more inches to get maturity, you run your pivot around twice and go on vacation. Or if you got a good chance of rain, maybe hold off a couple days, see if you catch rain, and then finish up with the pivot to get you the black layer. There's a kind of a screen in there that kind of walks you through how you enter the data, what values, and who developed the app and where did it come from. Any questions on crop water before I move to another app? Okay. The next one is the Irrigation Cost app. It costs $3.99 to download it. We've got it for Apple and Android. Basically computing annualized costs for ownership and operating costs for your irrigation system. So the first screen, you basically select whether you're dealing with a pivot or gated pipe. And then we select the pivot, and then you select your fuel source. Diesel, natural gas, LP gas, or electric. And for this example, we'll go through the diesel. You put in all your data. So we got 135 acres in the pivot. Our pumping lift is 165 feet. We got 45 PSI at the pumping plant at the outlet. On average, you put on about 6 inches of water for gross depth. You could put in labor costs, what you want to be paid for your labor. Diesel fuel price, $2.55, that might be a little low right now. Fixed power, district fees, drip oil and everything. 5% of the energy costs are added to repairs and maintenance for oil, filters, and lube. There's a little bit of calculation in there for friction loss within the pipeline. And then your salvage values are figured at 5%. When you're done, you click the calculate button and it'll tell you the total combined cost. So we're at $13,548 of ownership costs and $7,890 operating costs for that 6 inches of water that we said we would apply on an annual basis. That also tells you on a per acre basis and a per acre inch basis. And then it's got it broken out for all the different components of your system. So the irrigation well is costing you $3,000. Your irrigation pump is costing $1,256. The gearhead, $122. The base, the concrete pad, the pump base is $107. The diesel engine and tank are just under $7,000. Then the center pivot system itself about $6,000 total ownership and operating costs. So it's got all of those broke out. This example here just has electric, I believe, 8 cents per kilowatt hour in it. So you can change these numbers pretty easily and run it again. It also has that feature to email the results to yourself. This one does not store data on the phone itself. It just does a calculation, and when you get out of the app, it's gone. So if you want the results, just email it to yourself, then you'll have a record of that. It also has, if I go back, you'll be able to see the bar up here. 3 bars. If you click on that, and then this About This App and Help feature comes up that you can click on and get more information as well. So how do you use this information? So the part I like to look at is what's it costing me for operating costs to pump another inch of water. We're here about $9.74. So about $10 to pump an inch of water. Am I going to get enough bushels to pay that $10 with my last irrigation of the season? Corn's $3 now, so you need at least 3 bushels with the last inch. If you're not going to get that, then it's probably not worth applying that last inch of water. What if your neighbor wants you to irrigate for them? I get this question once in a while. You have a pivot on an 80 and your neighbor's got gated pipe across the fence line. He says, hey, why don't you just run your pivot around and then I don't have to put out a gated pipe. The question is, what are you charging for it? Okay? So you can go into these ownership costs, and now instead of dividing that number by 65 acres for your 80, you divide that by 130 acres to pick up 65 acres of his as well. So he ought to be paying at least ownership costs, and then you can charge him the $9.74 per acre inch of water applied. So if you put on 10 inches, like maybe in 2012, you multiply this $9 times 10, that would basically cover repairs and maintenance and fuel and stuff like that. Another question I get once in a while is the landlord owns the pivot and owns the land and the well. The tenant puts a pivot on it, and if they want to split those costs out, based on what they're putting into the scenario, the cost should be similar to how many bushels you get in return. So if the tenant's putting in 65% of the cost, he should get 65% of the bushels. So this would allow you to go in, because it breaks it out by component, you can figure out who's putting so much water in or who's putting so much money in each of those. And it has that About feature too. Just talks about who has developed it and where the information came from. Irrigate pump, again, this one's $3.99. It's available on Apple and Android. Figures how well your pumping plant compares to our Nebraska pumping plant criteria. Now, this criteria has been developed over about the last 30 years from thousands of pump tests and thousands of tests in the laboratory with diesel engines. How much work should you get out of a gallon of diesel fuel, basically, or a kilowatt hour of electricity? This criteria is a reasonable target that your system should be operating at. It is not 100% efficient. Okay, it's a reasonable estimate. We've actually had some pumping plants rank above the criteria, so it's not this high pie in the sky number that you'll never attain. Most systems should be able to reach this pumping plant criteria. So allows you to put in your energy source. We've got diesel, electricity, gasoline, propane, natural gas, and natural gas on a therms basis. Put in your price at $3.25 for the diesel fuel. Put in the number of acres irrigated and your gross inches applied. If you don't have a meter, if you do have a meter, you can click on one of these buttons over here, the acre inches, acre feet, or gallons, and it'll have a beginning and ending meter reading, so it'll actually calculate how much water you pumped over that time period. And I typically like to use this for the season. So if you'll read your meter at the beginning of the season, and at the end you'll know how much water you pumped, and if you'll keep track of how much fuel you used, you'll do a really good job of telling you where you're at compared to this criteria. This example here, this one's at 75% of the criteria. So the potential savings here is almost $2,000 per year. Is that enough of a savings to get you interested in figuring out why this pumping plant is not as efficient as it should be? Let's see, I kind of jumped ahead of myself. Also figure payback years if you make improvements. For this example, we're about 37% as efficient as we should be. Almost $3,000 worth you can save annually just in your fuel savings. And this also does a calculation here. If you had to go borrow the money to make an improvement to your pumping plant, how long is it going to take to pay it back? On this particular example, we've got a 7-year note in here, so you go to the bank, borrow money for 7 years at 4.5% interest. You could spend $16,000 to improve this pumping plant, and in 7 years, that annual savings will basically pay the banker back. So again, is that enough of an incentive for you to go out and figure out why the system's only 37%? Now this calculator here doesn't tell you whether it's the pump or the gearhead or the power source. It's just one of those three. So that's when you have your pump installer come out and they'll actually do a test. We'll tell you if your pump is just out of adjustment, they can adjust a little bit and you're good, or maybe the pump needs to be replaced. Well, you could spend $16,000 to replace that pump and the fuel savings would pay that back. Again, you can email your results to somebody else in your operation or send it to your pump installer. The thing that I like to do, if flows are tracked over the course of years, you can start seeing some trends in your pumping or your power unit performance. So if this number is starting to drag down every couple of years, drop 4 or 5%, what's that telling you? Well, something either needs to be replaced or adjusted. So if you would email this to yourself and keep track of that in a file, watch that number as you go over the years. That should stay fairly consistent. If it starts decreasing, it's time to have your pump installer come out, take a look at it, and fix it in January or February and not July and August when you really need it. There's also, you can click on, like the pumping lift, you can click on an example here, and it brings up a nice little diagram. The lift is basically where the water is at in the column as the pump is running. It's not your static water level, because when the pump starts to pump, you have a cone of depression. The water level will drop down within the well casing and then kind of be at a static level. That's the lift. That's how far the pump has to lift the water from that point up to the gearhead itself. And that's a series present worth factor. That's how we calculate this payback period for your loan if you have to borrow the money. Again, just some about information there. More information on how this is, who developed it, and how it was developed. Any questions on that one? Okay, we'll go to the meter calc. This is one that I put together. The Lower Republican NRD asked me to work on this a couple of years ago. We came out with an Excel spreadsheet version that is actually available on their webpage, lrnrd.org, I believe, is the webpage. You can go to that and download that Excel spreadsheet. That one's free of charge. You can keep it on your computer and save that information for each of your particular fields. If you'd like to have it on your phone, we're working on an iPad app. I looked at that version yesterday, so that should be released here pretty quick for your iPad as well. But it basically calculates the amount of water pumped by irrigation over time. Again, it's $3.99. Basically, you put in your field name here. Again, you can save multiple fields on this one. Select your meter type, what's the units, whether it be acre inches times 0.01 or gallons times 100. You can put in the meter manufacturer and the serial number. You can also click whether you have an allocation or not. If you don't have an allocation, click that. It kind of ignores that information for the rest of the calculations. If you do have an NRD with allocations, we'll get into that in a little bit. I got a few other slides on that one. Enter your beginning and ending meter readings, and you click on this next button down here to see the calculations. And it's got the date in there, the reading ranges, how many acre inches were actually pumped, inches per acre, and then if you put in multiple readings, it'll track that for the season. As I mentioned, the allocations, you can put in the data, how many years are in your allocation, what was the first year of allocation, how many inches do you have over that time period. It also has a feature in there, you can track an annual cap if you have that as well. In the annual cap, you can put in the 10 inches or whatever it is. Some NRDs have a penalty multiplier if you pump over that 10 inches. For this example, the penalty is 3 to 1. So if you pump 1 inch too much, you basically get charged for an additional 3 inches against your allocation. Again, enter the date and meter readings. Here it's calculating 1.2 inches. That's the first one we did, so that's the total for the season. And annual cap, we still have 8.8 inches left. We haven't hit the penalty yet, so the total pump is just at 1.2. And then the total of how much is pumped, the remaining allocation, and your annual cap on this as well. It also has that feature where you can email that to somebody else in your operation. Put in another meter reading. Here we're now over our annual cap, so our remaining is a negative number. So our penalty is 3 times that, so we're being penalized 3.6 inches in addition to what we pumped over that. So the total pump for the year is now 14.8. And then that pulls that off your remaining allocation for the year, with the penalty included. I'd like to recognize our sponsors, Lower Republican NRD, Tri-Basin, and Upper Republican NRD all contributed cash to help develop this. So I appreciate that. These little apps are pretty expensive. They're like $9,500 to develop this for your Android and your iPhone. So I appreciate the support that they provided to get this app up and going. And then hopefully the $3.99 that we're charging, hopefully that'll pay for the software updates. Every time a new phone comes out, the software has to be updated so that it will continue to work. And it does have the calculations in there, if your meter readings in gallons times 100, what formula do we use to calculate the acre inches? You can't see it here, but down towards the bottom of this, it talks about, this is for educational purposes only. If you want an official reading, how many inches you pump, contact the NRD, okay? Because they're the last say in how much water's been pumped. So I guess my closing slide is, let's use these flow meters as a management tool. Most of the time, flow meters are installed for regulatory purposes, okay? From my standpoint, they really should be used as a management tool. I've done several irrigation programs, and I've talked to producers, and I say, how much water did you pump this year? And the typical answer I get is, I don't know, the NRD hasn't told me yet. Okay? If you wait till the end of the season to know how much water you pumped, it's too late to make any changes. So we ought to be keeping track of that as we go through the season. You can take this information, how much water you pumped, say, for a week, and compare that to how much crop water use did we have for the week. And those two should be fairly similar. So you can keep track of that water pump for the season. Add in your rainfall, that should be about 24 inches of water for corn and beans. That's what corn and beans will use for a fully irrigated season. Whether it comes from the soil or rainfall irrigation, it should be about 24 inches. So keep track of how much water you pump plus that rainfall. That should equal about 24 inches. It'll tell you how efficient you are in applying water. With that, that's all I have. Do you have any questions? Back there. That's difficult for two fuel sources. What you would probably do is use the diesel example, and I've got a handout I could get to you that shows how many gallons of diesel fuel it takes to pump an acre-inch of water. Okay, I've got a table for that depending on your pumping lift and your pressure. And then I've got a multiplier that should say, well, if it's electric, how many kilowatt hours is that? And by using that information, I think we could get to it. So if you keep track of both fuel sources and how much water you pump, we can get the answer and let you know how close you are to the criteria. But the app will not do the two fuel sources, it will just do one. Okay, good question. Yes, so the question is, can multiple people enter data? Basically, it's on your phone, so they would have to enter the information on your phone. So you have one person do the meter readings and then email the results to 3 or 4 other people. That'd be the way to handle that. But if it's only on your phone, so you can't have multiple people entering data for that particular field. If we put it on a cloud, then you'd be able to do that. But I hesitate putting this information on the cloud because most producers don't want anybody else to have access to their data. So whatever's on your phone, that's all the farther this data goes. So nobody else can see that. Nobody else has access to that. Another good question.
Any other questions for Chuck? Chuck, thank you. It was a great presentation.